how important is the infrastructure in western North Dakota to the overall state economy?
Well, it's absolutely essential, and it does, as you say, it starts with public safety. I've been going to western North Dakota for 45 years. I've been a landowner in Slope County for 20 years, and one of the sad things about some of that infrastructure came after that tragic accident where the three young rodeo guys were killed coming home from a rodeo one night. Well, two of those three were the sons of one of my neighbors out in Slope County. I was at their funeral in the Bowman rodeo ground, saddest funeral I've ever been to in my life. And again, 2-lane road, and at night. I mean, it's a dangerous situation. So I think it's great that we've got infrastructure out there, not only to support the industry, but also to make sure that we're taking care of public safety. So one thing we have done well with the surge funding, because the surge funding, which again came from an entirely different bucket. We're not talking about the general fund where we really have let spending has gotten away from us, but in the surge funding, which was the Strategic Infrastructure and Improvement Fund, that was money that came from oil extraction, oil production taxes that was intended to go back to those oil producing counties, and spending over $1 billion, giving it back to communities with local decision making, local control is exactly what needs to happen. And the only thing that my running mate, Mayor Brent Sanford, who Mayor of Watford City, would we might have said, hey, let's have the formula. So instead of sending the money to Bismarck and sending it back, let's just keep more of it locally in the first place, so that local communities are always going to know where to spend the next dollar in infrastructure because they're there, and those are decisions that can be made in real time as opposed to every 2 years in Bismarck. But we are in much shape when the industry returns and oil prices return. We're going to be in much better shape in western North Dakota than we were before because of the infrastructure that we have put in place.
Is that part of your platform, is to take a look at that ratio policy where it goes to Bismarck and comes back? Because the North Dakota oil and gas producing counties last year spent a small fortune trying to lobby to get a higher percentage. They didn't get all they wanted. They got a little bit. Yep. But is that part of your platform?
Well, we've said, Brent and I have said, everything needs to be on the table. Because we're leaving an era of abundance. Where money was coming in above the forecast. Now we're entering an era where every month, we're coming in below the forecast. And again, we're, cumulative, we're off by over 1.1 billion. Just in the less than the first 12 months of the biennium, we're off by, that much, and it continues to grow. So, when you've got that big of a shortfall between, what your projected spending was and projected revenue, and I should say, and it really wasn't, the revenue is overstated because part of that spending was predicated on taking our beginning balance from 700 million down to 300 million for an ending balance. So that's another 400 million that was coming out of the checking account. Now that's going to be consumed, so the checking account's going to go from 700 to 0. We had a rainy day fund of 575. That's going to be gone before we even get into the second year of the biennium. And so the next time when we come into session, we are not going to have, the cushion is gone. The checking account is empty and the savings account is empty, and that's going to put a lot of pressure on us really thinking, how do we reinvent and how do we streamline? I mean, this isn't a belt tightening exercise. This is a reinvent government exercise.
As long as we're talking about the budget numbers a little bit, the trend has been for the last 15 years for governors to increase their budgets. Right. I think there might have been 1 or 2 examples where there's a 5% cut. I think at one point Governor Hoeven then had a 5% cut, and I think maybe the last budget might have been down. But the trend has been to increase the governor's budget. What does a budget look like under a Burgum gubernatorial administration?
Well, I think it's just going to have to face the reality. I mean, Governor Dalrymple has already ordered the departments to start looking at a 10% reduction, versus last time. So we know that the starting point is going to be down from the last session. It's just a question of how far it's going to be. And I think again, we're not going to have we aren't going to have additional economic information until after June 14th. We know we're going to have a new revenue forecast, made in August. But right now, again, we've been missing by a lot. Not a little. I mean, in March, 2 years ago, the revenue that came in the state was 204 million. This March, it was 98 million, 52% off. And April was, similar things. So these aren't 4% or 10% misses. I mean, we're missing substantially Because when the price of oil went down, not only did the oil extraction and production taxes went down, but we also saw a huge drop in sales tax, and then we've seen a drop in corporate income tax, and we've seen a drop in personal income tax. So the model, that was being used to forecast didn't encompass the ripple effect, through all the different forms of tax revenue, and then it also didn't account for the fact that we were going to end into a cycle of being really down in ag commodity prices, because every ag producer in the state, across the state, including the northwestern part of the state, they're all looking at cost of production that's going to be higher than what their expected revenue is going to be. And if you're staring down that barrel, you're not buying a new truck, you're not buying a new combine, probably spending. Our family's still is in the grain elevator and agronomy business, and so we know. Farmers even they even sometimes buy less fertilizer and chemical if they feel like they put less inputs in if they think they're not going to get as much out. So everything is down in our economy right now. Unfortunately, there's both oil and agriculture heading down at the same time, and that's really causing a double whammy for the state of North Dakota's revenue.